Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki. Jai Om Vishnu Padi. Vadi Vrajika Jaja Shodra Shri Mad His Divine Grace. Bhai Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Bhubari ki Jai. Grantara srimadbhagavatam ki Jai. Shri Ekadasi Vrata ki. Dhruva Maharaj ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Are you cooking today? Very nice. Special feast today. The Raj Bhoga is being cooked by Ramapati Prabhu. Santosh Ramapati. Fasting means feasting. There you go. This is proof of it. So, I'm reading this morning from the 4th canto, 12th chapter, verse 16. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Atma Striyapatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham.
Atma Striyapatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Kalo Paspirshtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Kalo Paspirshtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Atma Stripatya Surhido Balam Riddakosham.
Atma Stripatya Surhido Balam Riddakosham.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Kalo Paspirshtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Kalo Paspirshtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Atma Striyapatya Surhido Balam Riddakosham.
Atma Striyapatya Surhido Balam Riddakosham.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Please chant.
Atma Strapatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham.
Atma Stripatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Kalo Patrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam. Atma Strapatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham. Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha. Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya. Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Atma Striyapatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham.
Atma Strapatya Surhito Balam Riddakosham.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya.
Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam.
Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam. Atma Strapatya
Surhido Balam Riddakosham. Antapuram Parivihara Bhuvascharam Yaha. Bhumandalam Jaladi Mekalam Akalaya. Kalo Pasrishtam Itisa Prayayao Vishalam. Anyone else? Okay. word for word, synonyms. Atma,
Atma,
body.
body.
Stri,
Three,
wives. Apatya, children. Surhida, friends. Balam, influence. Army. Ridha kosham, rich treasury. Antapuram, female residential quarters.
female residential quarters.
Parivihara bhuvaha,
Parivihara bhuvaha,
pleasure grounds.
pleasure ground.
Cha, and Ramyaha,
Ramya,
beautiful.
beautiful.
Bhumandalam,
Mandala,
the complete earth. Jaladi,
Jaladi,
by oceans.
by ocean.
Mekhalam,
Kalam,
bound.
bound.
Akalaya,
Akalaya,
considering.
considering.
Kala,
Kala,
by time.
by time.
Upasrishtam,
Upasrishta,
created.
created.
Iti, thus. Saha, he. Prayayau,
Prayayau,
went.
went.
Bishalam,
Shalom.
to Bararik Ashram. Translation. Thus Dhruva Maharaj at the end left his kingdom, which extended all over the earth and was bounded by the great oceans. He considered his body, his wives, his children, his friends, his army, his rich treasury, his very comfortable palaces, and his many enjoyable pleasure grounds to be creations of the illusory energy. Thus, in due course of time, he retired to the forest in the Himalayas known as Bararik Ashrama. Please repeat. Thus, Dhruva Maharaj, at the end, left his kingdom,
Left his kingdom,
which extended all over the earth
which extended all over the earth,
and was bounded by the great oceans.
bounded by the great ocean.
He considered his body,
He considered his body,
his wives, his children, his friends, his army, his rich treasury,
his rich treasure,
his very comfortable palaces,
his very comfortable palace,
and his many enjoyable pleasure grounds
many enjoyable pleasure grounds,
to be creations of the illusory energy.
to be creations of the illusory energy.
Thus, in due course of time,
Thus, in due course of time,
he retired to the forest in the Himalayas,
retired to the forest of the Himalayas,
known as Badarik Ashrama. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the beginning of his life, when he went to the forest in search of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj realized that all bodily conceptions of pleasure are products of the illusory energy. In the very beginning, of course, he was after the kingdom of his father, and in order to get it, he went to search for the Supreme Lord. But he later realized that everything is the creation of the illusory energy. From the acts of Srila Dhruva Maharaj, we can understand that somehow or other, if one becomes Krishna conscious, it doesn't matter what his motivation is in the beginning, he will eventually realize the real truth by the grace of the Lord. In the beginning, Dhruva Maharaj was interested in the kingdom of his father, but later he became a great devotee, Mahabhagavata, and had no interest in material enjoyment. The perfection of life can be achieved only by devotees. Even if one completes only a minute percentage of devotional service and then falls down from his immature position, he is better than a person who fully engages in the fruitive activities of this material world. Om Agyan Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksul Unminitam Dehna Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaitin Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktaparinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Banchika Padrubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Varidanam Bhavali Bhu Vaishnavi Namo Namaha. So with your kind wishes, I'll try to say a few things. Thank you. So, if you think about it, how can anyone actually come to devotional service in the beginning, understanding that the goal is pure devotional service? How rare that must be. In fact, I don't know about Dhruva Maharaj, maybe you know, if there's a backstory to how he was so advanced at an early age, because sometimes we read the different stories in another Purana. There's a backstory to Prahlad Maharaj. You know, there's a backstory to Narada Muni as a little boy. He was actually making fun of the Brahmacharya ashram. And Lord Brahma want to teach him a lesson at the very end of one day of Brahma. It's just like, well, you think it's... So anyways, there's backstories. But if you think about it, who can walk through that door and go, yes, I'm interested in pure devotional service. Anyabhilasita sunyam gyanakama anabritam. Everyone approaches the Supreme Lord with different material... Not everyone. But generally we see, Krishna explains, Chaturvidham bhajanti mam. There's 4 types of people who approach Krishna. Because we're coming from somewhere. Everyone's coming from somewhere. So those who approach the Supreme Lord, they're going to be coming from, Krishna says, basically 4 different, with 4 different motives. So what's the first one? Distressed. That's the big one, especially in Kali Yuga. Who's not distressed? People are distressed and they want some relief. And I think it's intuitive, at least for a pious person, to pray. And even some people are atheists. Sometimes it gets very difficult and they start praying. What is it? Who was a philosopher? I don't know if it was Nietzsche or one of those great philosophers. Voltaire. I think it was Voltaire. Atheist. But on his deathbed, you know what happened? He called for a priest to do the last rites. Like that. Kind of like switch gears there at the very end, just in case. No atheists in the foxholes. Like that. It's funny, I say and sometimes use that in my preaching at these pujas I do, and a lot of people don't know what a foxhole is. It's a generational thing. What's a foxhole? What do you mean know? There's foxes in foxholes. You have to explain it to them what a foxhole. You know what a foxhole is? See, it's the thing from the previous wars. The soldiers would dig a big hole and hide in it, so then they get shot. They're called foxholes. So you're in there, and there's bombs flying all over the place and bullets going over your head. So there's no atheists in foxholes. They're praying like anything. Please, 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 I don't want to die. I don't want to die. So, but the material world is a distressful place, so it's intuitive for a pious person to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the impious person, God help him. So distressed, what's another one? In need of money. Like that, arta, I need some money. God help me, I need some money. Like that. Arta, gigyasu, inquisitive. And the last one? Search of knowledge. And Krishna says the one who's in search of knowledge is actually the highest, and one who's approaching it, you know. Because the difficulty is we have, and now Dhruva Maharaj, he was a very great soul, because generally when someone approaches the Lord out of distress or out of need of financial help, what happens when the Lord gives them that relief? Sometimes they go away like that. One lecture, True, says, thanks a lot, I'll call you again if I need some help. True, one lecture, he talks about the different kinds of faith. And one, he calls it the 911 faith. That's 911. What you call 911, you're in trouble. But you don't like call 911. Hey, how's it going? Oh, just checking in, see how you're doing. No, you only call 911 when you're in trouble. So that kind of faith is you call God, you call upon God, God's favor, only when there's a problem. And then when there's no problem, I don't hear from you. Like that. Just like Mahabharata was telling me the other day, we were together, and I asked about this expression, like they call you sometimes zakasito. So ito means little, but also it's an affectionate term when you put it on the end, like abuelito, my grandmother, or something like that. So he's saying his daughter, he was married before when he was in South America, El Salvador. And his daughter's a very nice young lady now. But he says whenever he would get a call or letter, and when she says, Papacito, he knows something's up. In fact, she even says, Papacito, I'm blinking my eyes, and that means I need some money. Like that. So, Papacito, I need some money. Like that. So that expression is, we want something. But as soon as you get it, you don't call. You don't hear from her for a long, 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 long time, and all of a sudden, Papacito. Okay, he knows I need some money, like that. So that's the problem. The expression Prabhupada uses, order supplier. Give me. So when I need something, I approach God. But now Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted some things. He wanted something quite phenomenal. He wanted actually a kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. And he was granted that, but he didn't. He had become purified. That's the point. Devotional service, it begins on this kind of these four stages, where one is looking for some relief, or looking for some money, or inquisitive, or even searching for knowledge. But by the association of devotees, one's heart becomes purified, and these things actually then become insignificant. They become insignificant, and one actually becomes embarrassed. Just like Dhruva Maharaj said that famous verse. He said, "I'm very embarrassed." When the Lord came to him, and he was very, very embarrassed. That he said, "I was looking for broken pieces of glass, and I've got the great valuable gem of devotional service." So how embarrassing can that be? You know. So because Krishna is the in fact, this whole material world, just like in the verse here, talks about he considered his body, which is very, very dear to everyone. What's more dear than our own body? Sometimes it's seen, it's very embarrassing also. When there's a catastrophe or something, people sometimes run for their own life, and they'll actually leave their family and friends. Like, I'm out of here. Sometimes that happens. Apparently there's a famous scene in this movie. I remember when someone speaking about Dr. Zhivago. I think it's Dr. Zhivago. It's about the Russian Revolution and so on. Anyways, I don't know the whole story. But at the end of the book, there's some gentleman who was a friend of the main character's family, and the daughter was there. And he was saying something about, that so-and-so wasn't really your father. Because there was the revolution and fight, and they all got separated. There was a war or something. They all got separated, and some man took her hand. Anyways, the point he was making is that wasn't your father, because when push came to shove, he let go of your hand and ran. So it couldn't have been your father. Some famous scene about that. It couldn't have been your father. And it's like, and the movie ends like that. She has a realization. This person she thought was her father the whole time. He said, he couldn't have been your father. Your father would never let go of your hand. But sometimes people will do that because our body is very, very dear to us. It's like, oh no, I don't. So we have our body, we have our spouses, wives, it says here, children. Children are even more dear than the spouse because there's a blood relationship. Sometimes you see that there's blood in there. It's very, very difficult to give up that relationship. It's a big knot. His army, his rich treasury, his comfortable palaces, many enjoyable pleasure grounds, and his kingdom. He had a very big kingdom. People have big kingdoms. They're very, very attached. You can imagine how attached Napoleon Bonaparte was to his empire. These different empires, the Roman Empire, this empire, that, and then all of a sudden you see it starting to fall apart. Hitler had his empire. America has its empire. But very, very, very attached to all this control and power. But here it says he saw it as creations of the illusory energy. So he was purified, completely purified. Instead of saying, oh, thank you, Krishna, for giving me all these wonderful gifts. I have such a nice body. I have such nice wives, like that. My children are just swell, wonderful kids, like that. Can't complain. All the friends I'm surrounded by. I have a very powerful army to protect myself. I got a lot of money, big treasury, like that. Comfortable palaces. Someone can think like that and thank God, thank you very, very much. In fact, I remember many years ago, I don't know what she's doing now. She'd become a devotee for a while. Remember Terry Cole Whitaker? Did that name ring a bell? Terry Cole Whitaker? She's a big Christian preacher. And apparently she married a devotee or something like that. Went to India and they just had a big change of heart. And she had some association with the devotees for some time. I haven't heard news of her. Something like that. But in the beginning of her preaching, back in the 80s, she was here in SanDiego because she lived in North County or something. And Mahatma and a few of us brought us because, remember Steve Opp? Steve Opp? Yeah. He was a very nice congregational member helping Maharaj and helping with the temple. He was a marketing director and so on, and was her marketing director. So he invited us to come. And it's a big, the whole philosophy, or a big cornerstone of the philosophy is the proof that God is happy with you and good to you is that you have some material opulence. And one way to prove it is to give big donations. So she was preaching on the stage there, and the whole mood was, and you look around the audience, very well-to-do people. She attracted very well-to-do people because that's the philosophy. Like that. One test that God is good to you and likes you and you're pleasing God is you will have abundance. Yeah, this is the whole thing. So I just wrapped it up with a little Christian bow, like that. So, which means if you don't have anything, God must not be happy with you. Like that. And the way to increase your abundance is to give. And guess who you're going to give to? Ta-da! Pass that bowl around, like that. So that's the idea. God is very good to me. I have all these wonderful gifts. But he's saying they're creations of the illusory energy. That's his realization. They're not gifts at all. They're actually burden. Could be a burden. And that one has to be very, very, very careful. So he was able to walk away from it. Able to walk away from it. And it says in the beginning of his life, he had that realization at a very, very young age. And he never gave it up. And this is, we were reading earlier all these different verses about how he ruled his kingdom. Very, very dutiful Kshatriya, but all the time not attached. He accepted all that facility, but not attached. And that's a very high level of Krishna consciousness. In the Nectar Devotion, where the subject of detachment comes up, Prabhupada says that real detachment is in the face of all these allurements, you're not attracted. Another lecture I remember True gave some time ago, he was saying that it's just like this. In prison, you got all these prisoners, and they're not doing anything wrong because they have a very regulated life. You have to get up at this time, you go to work, and you stamp out, I don't know if they still stamp out license plates, if that's a dated thing or something like that. In the prison, probably, I don't know if they're doing work at all. They do work, okay. So they do work them, okay. I'm sure some places more than others. Yeah. So, but they have a very regulated life. So you say, well, they're like saints. But as soon as you let them out of the prison, yeah, I get them out. So, in fact, our prison ministry has that. You speak to people who work with the prison ministry, writing people. Then they finally get out. They're, I want to be a devotee, Hare Krishna, this, and that. And then sometimes when they get out, you never hear from them again. Just as soon as they're in that atmosphere, gone. So in the sense that if you don't have anything, what do you have anything to be attached to? But then all of a sudden, I have no money. Well, how about if I give you $100,000, or I give you this, or give you that? Then the real test comes. So these are great souls that, like Dhruva Maharaj, in acting as the perfect king, surrounded by all these things, but he's not allured in any way because he has the realization that they're creations of the illusory energy. It won't give him any happiness at all. So that detachment, you see, it's important for every single person in society to develop it, to nourish it, because not just for the renunciate. I remember I have these lectures by, actually they're interviews with Vishwambar Goswami, many, many, many years ago, around the Radharaman temple, Prabhupada, friend of Srila Prabhupada's and so on. He's just talking about Ramananda Roy and this other devotee, I don't know who it was, were interviewing him about like 2-3 hours of just interview, talking about puja and, Vrindavan and this, that, and the other thing. And when they're one place, he says the Grihastha ashram is actually very, very important. He says, because when you go through the Grihastha ashram, there's so much responsibility. He said, just like this kurta, he said, I've had the same kurta for years, but every time there's a festival, Indian culture, every time there's a Lakshmi Puja or Diwali or this, that, you have to buy all new clothes for all the family members. So he said, I have to buy clothes for my wife and my kids. He said, I don't have anything left for me. I've been wearing the same kurta. He said, I run the temple. He said, whenever guests come, I have to make sure all the guests are taken care of. They have facilities, they have prasadam, this and that, all this responsibility. Making sure there's funds and resources for running the temple and for the family and all. He says, so by the time you finish your grihastha life, you're very, very responsible. So when you do take sannyas, you have some... It's a big relief, but also the fact that you become a responsible person. It's not, you're just thinking, because a sannyasi is the leader of society. He's supposed to see to the welfare, spiritual welfare and teachings of everyone. He feels responsible for others. So you get that training in a grihastha life. You become responsible for other people. When you're young, a young person, what are they responsible for? Yeah, no answer, see? That's why. When you're young, it's like, woo, just me. It's the me generation, right? like that. So you start thinking about us, and that, as a devotee, expands to the association of devotees, but all the conditioned souls. What's our responsibility for preaching, and so on and so on. So he made that point. It's a grihastha ashram. It's not that you have to be a grihastha to learn how to be. It was very helpful. You're forced. You're absolutely forced to be responsible for the welfare of others. That's just the nature of that ashram. So it's very good for it. It's good training. It's very, very good training. So 824. Another thing, so I'll end with this, as far as the preaching, therefore we have to be very, very kind and merciful, because people are going to come on all different levels. We're beginning their contact with Krishna consciousness. We can't expect, Prabhupada didn't expect much. Prabhupada, very, very kind and merciful when he came beginning his preaching. Look how tolerant he was, because people just are beginning their Krishna consciousness. They have no idea what's going on. But just to start it, that's the point Prabhupada was making in the purport. If somehow or other people can begin their Krishna consciousness in good association, then they'll become completely purified up to the point as described here, going back home, back to Godhead. That's just but not to be, and we have to be tolerant. We can't be foolish, but we are always trying to give people a start in their Krishna consciousness and then nurture that. And they'll gradually become Krishna conscious. And you know the verses. There's a verse, the last sentence or two of the purport is a verse from the first canto of the Bhagavatam about one who engages in devotional service but in due course falls down. That's up by Narada Muni. Better than one who engaged perfectly in their... Of the first canto by Narada Muni.
Oh.
One who performs his material duties perfectly.
Yeah, well, it's a great verse that you never memorize. But he's not like an ordinary person, because he's always remembering really the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord. If you forget that.
Right. So even a little bit of devotional service. And of course in Bhagavad Gita says that too. Swalpam api Dharmasetu Chaite Mahato Bhayat. The greatest fear is you escape the greatest fear by even having a little bit of devotional service, because Krishna will save you. As I've heard it said many times that when you begin devotional service, then Krishna forcibly drags you back home, back to Godhead, even screaming and kicking, like that. Because for the reason you just said, Prabhu, that because you have that taste, you can't give it up. You meet someone, devotees, they may haven't seen in a long time. They can't forget. Krishna just he makes you can't forget. You can't forget the taste of devotional service. Like that. So.
1517. This is Dharma.
That's it.
Is that the one?
I think so.
If someone gives up everything and takes it to the Lord, but he's sure and falls away, where's the loss?
Right, no loss.
Someone very nicely follows always the Dharma, but there's no bhakti, where's the gain?
Yes, yes. Any questions or comments on this verse about Dhruva Maharaj and his realizations? Yes.
Well, one thing that's very interesting here is that he starts out. Oh yeah, he starts out as a little child, and there's a certain immaturity there that's mentioned there. That he's got the Kshatriya spirit, and he's offended by his stepmother. And he wants to get back at her, and he wants a king. And so, but he has that Kshatriya spirit, and he's determined. And he has his mother, who's telling him to follow what his stepmother said, who said you have to get the mercy of God and all this thing. And so he goes out there, and Narada tests him, and he goes, and he goes through this whole thing of being as renounced as you could possibly be. I mean, it's the inconceivable austerities that he performs for the sake of getting the kingdom. But gradually, of course, the whole point is his desire is purified, and then he sees the Lord, and he doesn't give a fig about the kingdom anymore at that point. But then, you prayed for it, okay, you got it, 36,000 years, right? And in the course of that, there's a bit of a, I don't want to say fall down, but a little deviation where he loses it when his brother gets killed, and he has to be shown, well, no, you're overdoing it, the reaction. But then this is all these things he accrued. In other words, he had this kingdom and everything. But at the end, the realization, that he had was so strong that he could just see. What really this says is kalopasrishtam. It's created by Maya, but the thing is, it's controlled by time. So he's so much fixed on the eternal and realized that that's his real goal, that he's able to be completely be detached to this when the time comes, which is quite a remarkable thing, because you see that when your devotion is not really mature, it's very possible to slip back into attachment to whatever comes as a result of that devotion. And because you get more responsibility, you get more power, you may get some wealth, and to remain detached at that point, that's a test. Otherwise, you got to come back and So, but Dhruva Maharaj, in so many ways, he shows an example of the power of devotional service, and that's why it says that Lord Chaitanya loved to hear this pastime. It's just a reflection back and forth.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Prabhu. A couple of thoughts you inspired within me. No backstory that I know of, but he was in Vrindavan Dham, Madhuvan.
Yes.
So the influence of the Dham, we had a verse just before leaving Mayapur. Prabhupada mentioned the name of the Dham, Vrindavan, 17 times in the purport. There is no better place to cultivate devotional service than the Dham. So the influence of the Dham and his determination to follow the orders of the spiritual master, the two of them they enabled him, the blessings were received that he could get the impossible. And the other thing, yesterday's verse and this verse, it's harping on his realization of it being the illusory energy. It's also good to keep the foundation there, Mama Maya, that it's my, and he knew it was Krishna's energy, because the Mayavadis, they're very big about emphasizing it's an illusion, but their renunciation of it is Falgu Vairagi. It's foolish because they don't know that who it belongs to and how it can be used in Krishna's service. So if you give up something that you could utilize for the pleasure of Krishna, you're giving up the opportunity for eternal benefit. So that's the balance of, he sees it all as illusion. He said he didn't see them as gifts. You could put it also, because you can say these things in so many ways. They were gifts from Krishna, but he wasn't interested in the temporary gifts. He wanted the eternal service, and so he dovetailed those gifts in the service to get the benefit of eternal association and service.
Yeah, very, very important point. The illusion is these things are all for my sense gratification. The reality is they're all facility for devotional service. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu, for such a lovely class.
By your blessings and good wishes.
It's these sincere Vaishnavas there first. Just to touch base on the point that you made of the many types of people who come to Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada said that he's not impressed by those who come to the Krishna consciousness movement, but those who stay. And I was just reflecting and thinking about, people come, and it's really interesting to see how, when they take up the practice, they become purified, and when they get that taste, they actually become more qualified than we are. And by qualified, I mean that they're very sincere, and they hear the philosophy, and they want nothing other than pure, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. So this is a preaching movement. People are coming to our temples, and we get all types of people. We get the pious Indian person there before the deities, praying very seriously. But what for? For wealth, for good test scores, for a nice car, a nice spouse. We get the person on Sunday feast who comes, but then they actually just come for the feast, but not for the talk. They make sure they come by 7:30, and they get a nice plate of prasad. And then sometimes we get the young seeker who come to the Krishna lounge, And then they come for the kirtan, and they come for the wisdom talk, but they don't. I asked if they liked some prasad or some nice vegetarian vegan food, and they're like, no, I just came for the talk. So I think it's really important to be relevant to where people are as we receive them, and also really appreciating that their endeavor just to make it here. Like we just recently, everybody's endeavor, yes. We have these 2 young people coming by almost very regularly, some almost every day. And this young gal, Ace, she's going to local university. But in order for her to come here on time for Mangalarti, she lives half an hour away. So she has to rise by like at least 3:30, get dressed, get ready, and then drive down here. And, hopefully make it here by 4:30 to be here on time. And in the past month or so, I've seen her at least probably a little bit less than a dozen times for Mangalarti. She's that girl this morning. Much more qualified than I am, much more sincere. Just see that sincerity. And then we have this other devotee, Glenn, this young Asian devotee. And I don't know if devotees know, but he actually works night shift. So he's going to work by around 10 or 11. And then he works all night long. And then right after work, he drives here. And so he gets here sometimes around 6. Chants japa with us, attends the rest of the morning program, takes breakfast, heads home. He's been doing that for over a month. And so, right. So I guess the point that I just wanted to share was, we really don't know who these people are who are coming to Krishna consciousness, but it's so important to receive them with proper attention, respect, and affection.
Thank you. Give the man a microphone.
One time a devotee complained about, they're just coming to eat. They're not interested in the feast at all. I mean, in the lecture at all. Prabhupada said, oh, that's very good that they were attached to Prasadam. He said that Prasadam's going to get them. That's paraphrasing. He was very happy. All right.
Who's not here because of Sodom? Come on. I think it's about 100%.
Atheists in the foxholes. We've used that, we've heard that before. It's kind of, arto gyasa. But the atheists take great offense at that. There's a whole movement where there's even a group called Atheists in Foxholes. And here's a story just to show how determined these atheists can be. There's this one guy who wrote a book. He was a mountain climber, and he fell into a big crevasse. He almost died. And here is what he said. He was laying at the bottom of the crevasse. He was dehydrated. He was alone. His leg was broken. And what did he do? He was raised as a strict Catholic. I was totally convinced I was on my own, that no one was coming to get me. I was brought up as a devout Catholic. I'd long since stopped believing in God. I always wondered if things really hit the fan, whether I would, under pressure, turn around and say a few Hail Marys and say, get me out of here. It never once occurred to me. It meant that I really don't believe, and I really don't think that when you die, you die. I really do think that when you die, you die. That's it. There's no afterlife. So this is where this guy came from. That's how determined these atheists are.
Vritta Vrata. Just turn them into a devotee. It'd be a very good devotee. Okay. So I'll end with one story I just heard recently, because we're talking about people who come to the temple and you don't really know where they're coming from, and an amazing transformation. Now, you might have heard this story before, because I had just heard it the other day. Ramapada Maharaj was beginning one of the japa retreats. I don't know how many years ago this was. But it's a story about, in Vrindavan, at the Krishna Balaram temple, the book table. This Mataji from Russia or one of those countries was manning the book table. Womaning the book table, excuse me. I guess she didn't man the book table. She womaned the book table, right? And this yogi walks in, with matted hair so long it's actually dragging on the ground behind him. So you can just imagine the beard, the long matted hair, the saffron kind of clothes, and had a few followers with him, and she, quite a spectacle, and walks right in, heading to, and sees the book table. And comes over and kind of looks at it and so on, and he speaks English, and he speaks, because he had been a professional, and then he retired and whatever, but he'd been a yogi living. And he looks at the Bhagavad Gita and says, "How much is this?" So she tells him, so he reaches in and pulls out some crumpled rupees and gives it to her. And then he takes the Bhagavad Gita and darshan, and he leaves. The next day, guess who comes back? The yogi, disheveled and all. He comes, big smile on his face, comes right up to the same Mataji at the book table and says, "I've been teaching Bhagavad Gita for 20, 30 years. And after reading your spiritual master's Bhagavad Gita last night, I realized I didn't know the Bhagavad Gita. I did not know the Bhagavad Gita. I had no idea what the Bhagavad Gita was. I've been just saying the wrong thing all these years. But after reading it, now I know what the Bhagavad Gita is. Do you have any other books by the same author?" So I kind of faded. At that time, she sold a full set of Bhagavatams to him. So he took a big full set of Bhagavatam, and he went away. I figured how there might have been more to the story, but the point is.
Well, the rest of the story is that he shaved off a couple of weeks later. When he left this weekend, it was dragging on the floor.
True? Okay. But just see. So that's a wonderful story. And he said, at 30, I had no idea what the Bhagavad Gita was. He said, "Do you have any other books?" So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Kadasi Bhakti Ki, 25 rounds Ki, if you have time.